will be broadcast from there. And otherwise, let's take the questions.
Okay, so let's let this video come on. There you go. Okay, so the first question today um, is from Manohar, and he says, "Good morning, Maharaj. In reading the sacred preface, there is a part where it explains that seeing Krishna in person is a higher experience than seeing Krishna in meditation. This reminded me of a story I've heard about a lady who walked around with the deity and she was always in conversation with it, and that others saw her as a mad or crazy person with mental illness. So, my question is related to this story, combined with the statement in the Gita that says, once someone obtains Krishna, there's no coming back here. I have a fear of this, a fear that I will be so captured by Krishna that I will be seen as mad, and in that state not be able to do service here or to the Guru, even though I do accept that direct service to Krishna is possibly a higher form of service. Is this an unfounded fear? Would you please help me overcome or dispel such a fear of seeing Krishna in person in the waking state? Perhaps that story of the lady is not a good example."
That's not a particularly good example. There are a number of examples of devotees having an intimate relationship with their deity, and that's profound and important, significant, no doubt. But what I'm referring to there, that you have referred to in sacred preface, is something that comes from the discourse or the commentary of Sanatana Goswami, I believe, in in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and maybe also in his commentary on the Damodar Astakam. That he makes the case that to see Krishna in meditation, that would be called antardarshan, so an internal darshan. And while profound as it is, indeed, this was the case for Brahma. He heard the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam and the Gopal mantra from Krishna internally, within. Antar means within, antar darshan. This is also an example of how, which validates the point that is mentioned in Vedanta Sutra. Of course, that would be a validation in itself that mantras can be passed on in dreams. Those, which would be a similar event, if you will. But aside from that, the point that Sanatan is making is that there is, an external darshan. Krishna actually appears before someone outside of the way in which he manifests as the deity. I mean, the deity could be seen as stone, it could be seen as a person, and realized to be non-different from Krishna, but still he's speaking about something even more profound, if you will. So it's not the best example of what we're talking about. Now, with relation to your fear, if people think that you're mad, why? But you're madly in love with Krishna. Why would you be afraid of that? There are a number of examples of devotees that were considered mad, and they were, but they were madly in love with Krishna. So that's a desired result, from which there is a fact. There is no return. So I wouldn't be too concerned about not fitting into the world if your way of not fitting into the world is not fitting into a perception of the world which is illusory, which is erroneous to begin with. So who's mad? Hmm. That's the real question. Um, and of course, the answer is that the materialistic flatland perspective, three-dimensional, perspective of the world is a kind of madness. If you look carefully at it, uh, as well reasoned in one sense as materialism, as philosophical materialism seems to be. Its very basis is just insanity. It's the self arguing against its own existence, without which there would be no argument. So it's quite insane, as it is. So the madness from that perspective, I wouldn't be too concerned about. It's desirable to think that you're mad. Of course, we want people to think that our theology, our philosophy is rational, is reasonable, and we give rational support for it and so forth. But it involves revealing the irrationality of their own perspective. Then again, from a rational point of view, there's arguments one side or the other, and so on, and therefore we say ultimately reality transcends the limits of reason. So that should be considered also. I hope that helps. What else?
The next question is from Braj Sundari, and she asks, I recently heard a statement that Sri Guru is in the heart together with Paramatma. For a long time, I thought they were synonymous until the highest stages of bhakti, where Krishna would take the role in the heart of his devotee. But since Paramatma is usually depicted as passive witness and Sri Guru gives active guidance from within, I'm not sure anymore. Who then is the Sri Guru that stays in the heart together with Paramatma? Thank you.
Well, what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says is that the Cheta Guru, which is the way in which he refers to the Lord in the heart, is manifest externally as the Mahant Guru, who takes the form of both the Diksha and the Siksha Guru, in either case or both, either the Siksha Guru, Diksha Guru, or in one person both, which is normally the case. So that means to say that the Guru is in the heart as much as the Guru is representing Krishna, who's in the heart. So in a representational sense, the Guru is in the heart. That's just one way to look at it. I mean, we're not looking at this as kind of biological, in the heart. An example is given in the sutras of the Paramatma standing inside the heart of the size of a thumb, which would be about the size of your thumb is probably about the size of your heart. And there's enough room to fit there. But this is just for conceptualization, right? For meditation. So even the word heart, we're not speaking about a particular physical organ, if you will. So, but the Guru is in our heart as much as the Guru is dear to us. Well, that's how he's in the heart. If we love our Guru, then he's in our heart. I think that you don't need to overthink that. Hope that helps.
And then Braj has another question saying, could you explain something about the spota theory of meaning of the words and the development of that idea by the Goswamis? It seems to imply that a person who has wrong understanding or bad intention can turn even the mantra or sacred texts into materialistic sounds. I mean, I heard many times about milk touched by a snake becoming poisonous, or not listening to Bhagavat Saptaha by professional reciters, but I never heard there was a real Indian grammar conception supporting it and explaining it scientifically. It almost sounded scary, since most of us repeat the sacred sounds without realizing them, and we also often have no idea if the speaker we don't know is a sincere follower of Parampara or not. So could you say something about it? Thank you.
Well, I'm not, and I never found that Spota theory interesting enough to take up and study. Hmm. So I'm not an expert on that in general. But there's, I can answer to related issues in your question. Um, and that is, how do we know who to hear from? Maybe we should be afraid to hear from anybody? I mean, there are other symptoms by which we can understand someone has good character, um, uh, and deep faith, taste for hearing and chanting, and so forth. These are control of the senses and mind, and so forth. These are observable symptoms by which we can understand the subjective experience, reality of a sadhu, has that he or she has good standing within. Shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. So command of the sacred texts and the harnessing of the human passions, which is miraculous. So if they could perform, he or she could perform that miracle, that it's somewhat, I would say, observable to us. The subjective experience of a sadhu has objective, external, observable symptoms. And we should look for those. Bhagavatam also cites, not Bhagavatam, Bhakti also cites 9 preliminary symptoms of bhava. And so they can be seen, for the most part, they can be seen in devotees, which would, so this way there is some criterion by which we can understand who's worthy of listening to and who's not. And, I mean, it wouldn't be hard to conversely, to determine that someone was a professional Bhagavad speaker. There was a professional Bhagavad speaker that wanted to set up shop next to the Bhajan Kutir of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, because he assumed that Babaji Maharaj would attend his lecture, and then afterwards you could say, even Gaur Kishore attends my lectures. But Babaji Maharaj did not attend, even though it was going on purposely next door to his Bhajan Kutir. And so afterwards, one of his assistants asked Maharaj, why didn't you attend? You speaking the Bhagavatam, isn't that what you're about? Having doubt in Babaji Maharaj. And he said, you heard Bhagavatam? I only heard rupee, rupee, rupee from my kutir. All I could hear was money, money, money. You could hear his heart, right? But we not be able to hear the heart, but then we could see how the person is living and conducting himself. Babaji Maharaj, for example, used to live in the fields, and one rich man who had everything except a guru to be socially, sound, and so he decided that he should have Gaur Kishore as his guru. Then he would really be able to have a great card to play in his social life. And my guru was Gaur Kishore. So he went to Gaur Kishore's Babaji and asked for initiation, and said, Babaji Maharaj, whatever you ask, just ask. I'll fulfill. He was a rich man, so I thought, well, what is the Babaji going to ask that I can't fulfill? I could give him a whole, acre of land or whatever he wants, build him a house. So it's no problem. So Babaji Mar said, yes, very much. Thank you. I will initiate you. I have only one request. You stay here with me and don't go home. And so the man ran away from there. Just an extended thought there on the wisdom, right, and the insight of such sadhus. So we may not be equipped with that, but there are other. We could see people like that, or we could see, it's fairly apparent that someone is making a living off of their recitals and so forth. It's a common thing in India. It's pretty clear. So sorry about the spoto. Yeah, that's a whole other theory of language and so forth. What else? I'm not familiar with that.
The next question is from Uddhava.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is from Circle of Friends. Here you write, one is typically better off with good spiritual instruction, but good spiritual instruction is only so when it corresponds with the appropriate stage of spiritual realization that enables the sadhaka to take advantage of it. Is this only applies to the subject that we're speaking of, like meditation, or is a general statement? And could you elaborate on it?
Could you state it again? Read it again.
Okay, I will try. One is typically better off with good spiritual instruction, but good spiritual instruction is only so when it corresponds with the appropriate stage of spiritual realization that enables the sadhaka to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. So I think that section is referring to the fact that by hearing and chanting with the blessing and guidance of Sri Guru, all of the wealth of prem will manifest in due course within the heart. Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita. He says in the 10th chapter, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam payantite. So he says they worship those who worship me ardently and so forth. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. He's the antaryami. In this case, he's become the Lord of one's heart. So that said, in some instances, Sri Guru will give further instruction about the ideal. We don't see that in the case, for example, of Gopakumar and Brihad Bhagavatamrita. His guru gave him the mantra, and then his guru passed out and couldn't give him any instruction. But he chanted the mantra and he became successful. In the end, he got Siksha from Narada and Uddhava. Uddhava told him to return to Braj and to chant his favorite names and meditate on the pastimes corresponding with those names, by which then he attained Goloka. Everywhere else he attained by his mantra, but the efficacy of his mantra had been reached at that point, and by Nam he went the further distance. So he is an example of what Krishna says in the Gita, right? That by worshiping him, ardently, he gives the knowledge by which you can come to him. He is the ultimate Siksha Guru, Krishna. But there are instances in which the Guru will give more instruction along with the mantra, right? In most cases. Now, there's any number of topics he may discuss about, but what's relevant to the section that you're citing is instruction, siksha, about the swarup of the jiva. Is it in terms of manjari bhav or sakya bhav, as may be the case, And so the point I'm making there is that at Bhaktivinoda kind of forged a medium in between a position by emphasizing, as he did it appropriately, so that this is inherent in the heart and it'll come out on its own by your practice. The name will reveal, everything will be revealed. But that the guru will serve as an advisor and a coach, so to speak. This is in contrast to the idea guru gives the swarup, and without the guru you don't get the swarup, you don't have a swarup. He's going to give it, he's going to tell you, you are such and such manjari, this is your name. Without that, you're just a blank slate of bare consciousness, just uncontentless consciousness. This is the contrasting perspective that's not supportable by the scriptures and previous charges, but is widely espoused in some different lineages of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that have become spiritually weakened and turned into, in some instances, not all instances, but in some instances, a professional kind of affair. So rather than that extreme, or the other end of the spectrum, no instruction, which is better than false instruction, right? But in between is there's some instruction, and it takes the form of like coaching, if you will. So this is what Bhaktivinoda advocated. So I said he's kind of coming in the middle between these two, in a sense. But the point that I'm making in the statement that you cited is that while good instruction is desirable and useful, it will only be as useful as the sadhaka has attained an appropriate stage to be able to take advantage of the instruction. So I may have good instruction, but I may not share it because you have not reached a stage that you can take advantage of it. So you've got to put the two things together, right? There'll be other instruction that can be given at other stages, at lower stages. There's always room for instruction, but Bhaktivinoda was particular about this, and as he emphasized that the instruction about such topics, this should be for devotees who have attained ruchi, asakti, the higher end of sadhana bhakti. So that's what I'm saying there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I was wondering if this is specific for this, or it could be applied in a general principle, like depends on your advancement, certain extractions you might not be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a general principle as well. Bhaktivinoda likes to cite the Bhagavatam 11th canto, that acting according to one's adhikar, one's eligibility, is true beauty. When you don't know your place and you act out of place, it's unbecoming. So it's related to what we're talking about. Instruction, as much as it corresponds with our eligibility and our adhikar, it's going to be useful. Otherwise, it may be misunderstood, misconstrued, unable to take advantage of it, and so on and so forth. Similarly, if I'm giving instructions that is beneath your adhikar, well, it's not going to interest you, right? So it's kind of fairly obvious that the two should connect in general.
Thank you.
What else?
The next question is from Ram Mohan.
Namaskar, Maharaj. I just had a question about Balaram, his his plow and his mace. Could you share some insights into why he has a plow and a mace? Why does he carry those?
I believe the mace is primarily a we want to say instrument or a ornament that is particular to the Dwarka Lila, Mathura Dwarka. Sometimes in Dwarka, Krishna, Balaram, they appear in four-armed forms. Some Aishvarya, they're known to be by the Yadus to be God, for example, which isn't the case in Braj. And so these are the symbols or the instruments, what was the word for that? Weapons of Narayan. And with regard to the plow, we don't find much. We only find, I believe, one instance of this in the Braj, and that is when Balaram went to Vrindavan from Dwarka at the behest of Krishna to represent him. And while meeting with the gopis, he represented Krishna and assured them, Krishna's gopis, of Krishna's return more than Uddhava could do when he previously tried. And getting a sigh of relief and hope, and through his presence, by which Krishna was so much represented that Balaram turned black. His complexion turned black. Then Radhika asked him that, aside from the message that you've brought us, we have a message for you, Balaram. That message is that the girls that fell in love with you during the holy celebration years ago, before you left us with Krishna, they've been waiting for you forever to return. And would you please marry them? So Balaram said, well, I'll have to ask Nanda's permission on that. It's not particularly my interest, but I appreciate their plight. So Nanda, of course, gave permission. But then Balaram married them in an unconventional way at the same time. And this is the instance in which he was with his gopis and drinking the Varuni beverage, an intoxicating beverage. And he told the Jamuna, come over here. We want to bathe in you. We don't want to walk over there. You come over here. And she resisted. And so he manifested his plow and then dragged the Jamuna over. So it goes. And then the deity, the Jamuna, manifest and understood what was, who he was. It was perhaps a little bit hard to understand, being an intoxicated fellow in the woods, if you will, human-like. So this is the only instance that I'm aware of in which Balaram manifests his plow, but he is affectionately referred to as Haladar. And sometimes this is thought to be symbolic of the plowing of a field that's required before the planting of the seed, preparing of and this is sometimes used as an analogy to describe the role of the guru, who prepares the field before the seed of the mantra is imparted at Diksha, prepares the ground through Siksha. So sometimes this has been Balaram being like, the Khanda Guru Tattva, the origin of the Guru Tattva, as the personality of Godhead himself, manifest as a servitor of the personality of Godhead, which is, position of the Guru, the servitor of Krishna, but Krishna in a representational sense. So sometimes that plow is described in that way to represent that, but otherwise, yeah, there are no other instances that I'm aware of that his plow is employed in Brudge. Some dismiss, therefore, that he manifests the plow in Brudge at all, but I've given an instance in which he does, and there are instances in which he's referred to as Hali, short for Haladar. Hali and Hali, there they are, the two of them. So there it is representative of the Brudge Leela, and it appears to be replaced by the mace, I guess you would say, in his princely Leela, where he's dealing with demons and so on and so forth. So that's the difference. Hope that helps. Aladarji Kijai.
So there's a follow-up. I think you might have touched on it, but I'll ask from Lalita Saki. And she was asking that is Radha asking him to marry those gopis? Why, as you've mentioned in Circle of Friends, that Radha called him Hali, plowboy.
Gotcha. There you go. Plowboy. Okay. Yeah, there's the instance. Yeah. He demonstrated it. Right. So she brought it out of him. What else?
So the next question is from Bijay Kumar.
Changa Pranam, inspired by the second canto, chapter 4, text 22, may you share any specific techniques or practices of how we may help ourselves get the smarnam of the apuruyesha vibration of the supernatural sounds of the Lord, as you have done? My heart has not been able to retain most verses or prayers like you. Thank you in advance.
What's the question specifically?
How we may help ourselves get the smarnam of the apurusha, it's
Apurusha, yeah.
Vibration of the supernatural sounds of the Lord, as you have done. That was spoken of in the second canto, chapter 4, text 22.
Apurusha sounds refers to the Shruti, the Veda, which are said to be not of human origin. Apurusha, not human origin. But to be honest with you, these how-to questions are not always that useful, in that everything we do is the how-to. We're already doing all those. We're already doing all those things. And then you ask, well, how long? How long until? But then the answer is, when you stop asking that question, then that's when. Because the destination, the journey, is the destination. We have not realized that yet. Often, the journey itself is the destination. When we pay attention entirely to the journey, we'll find that we've attained the destination. So it's a question of that attentive practice, and try again. And if at first you don't succeed, well, try again. It's said. It's an English adage. So, we look at the Lord's name as something of non-human origin. Obviously, it's not different from Krishna, and I believe in his. I can't remember the name of the book now. Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said things like we should beg, borrow, or steal to get what you're talking about. He put it in poetic terms, in the nectar of the holy name. This is what you're talking about. And he gave a technique there for chanting japa. Close the door, lock it, blindfold yourself, and chant the holy name. which implies that there needs to come to a one-mindedness. Bahusakahinantascha samadhanabhriyate. If your mind is many-branched, going in many directions, chasing after many things, then the samadhi, trance, smaranam, nirvana smriti, smaranam, that is our ideal, will not come about. Samadho nabhiriyate. So it will only come about with one-mindedness. So it's eliminating other desires, ambitions, values, seeing them as false, that they don't bear any fruit, really. After all the effort to get them, they're not what they're held up to, what they were made out to be, and they don't last. And so time, experience, these lessons become realizations, and then one is able to apply oneself, and with increasing one-mindedness, and then the desired results will manifest. Thank you.
Thank
for the
you.
question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
What else?
The next question is from Anonymous. And so they ask, how can one control the desire for recognition and validation from others, or more strongly, the desire to be revered by others?
Oh, well, I believe it was Raghunath Swami that said that this desire is like the stool of pigs who eat stool. So, my gosh, the holy cow, that doesn't sound very attractive. So we have such a description from the great Raghunath Das Goswami. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is, I believe, said that this pratishta, which is what you're talking about, is at the root of all anarthas. It's a false understanding of oneself, one's value, and one's desire to be in the center, which you're not. You're not the center, so it's an off-center desire, and so it's at the root of your false identity, out of which false values arise. So it is an important question, but I can tell you it's just not. I got a lot of praise. It's not worth very much. I mean, it's dangerous because it could intoxicate you and allow you to believe what people say about you, even though they don't always mean it. Or they just say it automatically, without thinking about it, its implications and so forth. I think that you may have to look at, we value ourselves and we want others to value us. But in a sense, by wanting to be valued, we want to see ourselves as more valuable than the next. But the valuation comes from the person who you think is less valuable. So how valuable is it? You have to do the math, right? I want to be distinguished from others who I, in my own sense, are less than me, and I want that to be validated. Who's going to validate it? The people who are less than me. What's the value of their evaluation then? It doesn't amount to much, right? So, different ways that you can think that out. Naturally, in some sense, we want to be acknowledged, and that's significant and important, our presence and so forth. But you're talking about something, I think, beyond that, beyond basic need to be psychologically acknowledged, heard, and be understood to be present and represented. Otherwise, you're not part of the thing. So that's natural. But beyond that, to be praised, glorified. What we really want is to be noticed by persons of spiritual consequence. Whether that be they notice I'm doing something wrong enough to tell me, or they notice I'm doing something right, and they may say so, they may not. But if they recognize that I'm doing something right, then there will be some knowing of that, knowing as to that intuitively. But what we don't want is to be ignored and to be, for the guru, for example, of sadhus, persons of spiritual consequence, to be indifferent to us. Means they think there's no hope for us. If they correct us, they think there's hope for us, that we listen, to take advantage, and they spend the time to correct us. So yeah, but this is a problem. The desire for distinction, adoration, profit, puja, labha, pratishtha. This is the position of Krishna, right? He's worthy of such, and when he is given the central focus, everyone's nourished. It's just like if you put the food in the stomach, well, all the parts of the body are nourished. But if the tongue decides it wants to keep the food, or the hand decides it wants to keep the food, instead of giving it to the stomach, well, this is a problem. Everything in the system becomes malnourished. So I think it's easy to understand we're not the center if we sit down and think about it. And it's good to be on the circumference. Of something that has a center. So yeah, it's a prominent anartha, to say the least. So how to overcome it? You have to think it out, and do the math. What is its value? And the fact is that that if you do the right things, and who are you trying to please? If you do the right thing, if you follow our guru and Krishna, we should feel validated, if you will, acknowledged by that. I'm doing what they asked. Just the thought, I'm doing what my guru has asked of me. Doesn't that, to me, that's, you've been acknowledged. You've been asked to do something. You've done it. Well, very good, right? So if we conduct ourselves with that kind of thought in mind, then what's the need for some false sense of value and importance, right? Again, who will we get it from? But people don't know any better. So, when you want to live in that world of I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, we'll both pretend we're better than we are. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was openly an enemy of hypocrisy. This is like very central to his whole presentation. Give up the hypocrisy. I'm saying one thing, I'm doing something else. I'm calling myself a devotee, but I'm the one that wants to be in the center. I'm probably exaggerating, whatever the questioner's problem is with Pratishtha, but it's related. So those are my thoughts on that at the moment. What else?
Guru Nishta has a follow-up to this one, Guru Maharaj.
Fellow, it was once a student of mine. I told him that you have to be very careful that in writing that it doesn't serve to foster your pratishtha. And so he said, how can I overcome that? I said, well, ask Guru Nishta. So he asked Guru Nishta, how can I overcome, pratishtha in writing? And Guru Nishta said, don't put your name on it. He could not swallow that pill. He could not swallow that. He was going to suggested, don't put your name on the book that you're writing. It was good advice. I sent him to a good mentor, but he could not digest that. That got caught in his throat. He vomited it up, plastered his name on it. And that's a whole other story. But yes, Gurnisht, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I've heard that Pratishtha basically like it's the sense that we exist on some level. That so basically when you're like materially conditioned, you can't not have Pratishtha and be materially conditioned, right? Like they go together, right?
Yeah.
And so then my thought was that you can't really think your way out of Pratishtha if you're materially conditioned, because it's actually this basic mode of being in material life.
Yeah, I
Does
mean,
that-
you can think what the problem is, and understand it, the problem, the issue, right? That's what I'm
Right.
saying. And then you apply yourself in transrational ways to overcome it.
Right. Okay. And then one more thing that came to my mind is Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's a disciple. He had this thing about cultivating Vaishnava Pratishtha. That's a good thing. Like you become really proud of the fact that you're, like you sometimes say, proud to be a humble Vaishnava or something like that. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm proud to be a humble member of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and the Bhaktivinoda Parivar. I've said that many times. I think Vaman Maharaj was a disciple of Keshav Maharaj, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
Not Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But that doesn't make his opinion any less important or valuable. It's very valuable. So, yes, I should be proud to be a humble servant of Sri Guru and Krishna. How could you not be proud of that? That's such a wonderful thing. I'm proud of that accomplishment. I'm proud of that accomplishment, which is accomplished by their grace. So, what else? A few minutes.
The next question's from Lalita here in the UK, and she asks, she says, Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj and devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. After thinking about Draupadi and Krishna's Sakha-Saki relationship in the Mahabharata, I was wondering, does Krishna have any Sakis in Braj? In other words, does Sakya-ras extend to the handmaidens, and are there any examples? Or are the two rasas quite exclusive to the two groups? I understand the rasas can overlap and influence each other, like the Priyanarma Sakas, who help Krishna with his romantic life. Thank you so much.
I'm not quite clear on the question. Draupadi was in Sakya-ras, yes.
So
is there Sakya-ras in? Are asking, is there Sakya-ras outside of Braj?
are you there, Lalita? Ajay?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my question. Like in Braj, in Vrindavan, do you have other examples of handmaidens or the gopis who are in Sakya-ras? Or are they
gopis
predominantly
in Braj being in Sakya-ras?
Because of the
I see.
example?
So you're giving a parallel. Outside of Braj, where there is a form of Sakya-rasa, Arjuna is the primary example. Draupadi is another example. Yudhisthira Maharaj. Draupadi is a female, and she is a friend of Krishna. She is in Sakya-rasa. That's true. So your question is, are there any young ladies in Braj, Leela, who have Sakya-rasa with Krishna? The answer to that is, I would say, given in the last chapter of Circle of Friends, the extent at which that is a fact, where I have explained Jiva Goswami's statement in Priti Sandarbha that the Kantabhav, which means the romantic love for Krishna, in Braj, he says, is mixed with Sakya, which would enhance, that kind of mixture would enhance the Madhurya rasa. When these rasas mix, two primary rasas, the foundational rasa, in this case for the gopis is Madhurya, mixing with Sakya, which is favorable, will enhance their Madhurya rasa. But that's the extent of it. Otherwise, we don't have any examples of gopis being friends. I mean, I suppose you could stretch it a little bit to say, you know, figures like Brinda Devi, they have no romantic direct relationship with Krishna in one sense. There's more prominence of Sakya there, but typically no. Still want to go there? Good.
Thank
So.
you. Thank you so much.
All right. What else?
So Braj has another question. She's going to try. She couldn't type it. She's going to try and see if her connection works out.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, I have a cousin and she's a very good person, but she became atheist few years ago and she's really like preaching about it. And whenever I come to visit her, she's like coming back and back at me with this topic because in her opinion, if God exists, he has to be evil because with all his power, he should be able to extinguish all the suffering, but he's not doing that. So I was trying different approaches, but nothing works. And I have a feeling that she would respond maybe to impersonal Brahman thing, but I don't feel like it's a proper way to present God for me as a devotee to someone. So I don't know, like, how should I deal with that situation?
Yeah, well, this is a famous argument. If there's suffering in the world and God's all powerful, why does he remove the suffering? But this is a very human, constructed argument from a very human perspective, which is only one perspective. I've given an example before. Let's say there's a tidal wave, a tsunami, so it kills many villagers or people, wipes out a city. It's terrible. Why did God let that happen? Well, from the shark's point of view, it was great. So, where's the happiness? The sharks, one man's feast is another man's funeral. That's the reality of material existence. So we have to, first of all, realize we're looking at it through a materially conditioned human mind, which is only one perspective. Do not animals have a perspective on the world of what's good and bad, or they have any feelings? Maybe it's not a moral judgment, but feelings, which is really what you're talking about. Some people are suffering, that's a feeling. Well, humans may be suffering in a certain situation, but that very suffering may be the cause of some other being's happiness. I'll just give one example. So just to relativize, let me finish. Just to relativize the human perspective. That's one thing. But besides that, speaking to the humans themselves, it's God in the Bhagavad Gita that explains to them where suffering comes from. Krishna tells us, God tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, suffering comes from attachment. And he goes on to tell us how we can end suffering. So has anybody besides God given you a reasonable explanation of how to end all suffering? No. And you want to do away with God. He's the one that gives a reasonable explanation that you can experience yourself, how to end suffering. Suffering occurs in the mind. That's where it occurs, right? That's where the qualitative experiences take place, in the mind. Krishna tells us that attachment is the womb from which suffering is born. This is the wisdom of the Buddha, also played out in Bhagavad Gita and expanded upon. So you can reason this out. It's very pragmatic in your own individual life. So Krishna is the one, God is the one who's given a solution to end all suffering. Has any atheistic perspective give any solution to end suffering? Atheism doesn't end suffering, right? Is there a chance that theism does? Well, yeah, there is. Why is it not working, comprehensively at the moment? Well, because God wants us to want him. I mean, you have will, so do you want freedom? Yes. Okay, then you have to have freedom to make wrong choices, right? Otherwise, freedom is meaningless. So God gives freedom, therefore you have freedom to make wrong choices. And if you make wrong choices, well, there are going to be repercussions. Despite you doing so, Krishna tells you in the Gita that this is the whole problem, what you're doing here. You're causing your own suffering. Stop it. So where has atheism given a solution to end suffering? It hasn't. It's theism gives a solution, and of course in a lot of religious schools it's not very pragmatic, but in the Gita it's philosophical, right? Attachment is the womb from which suffering is born. So ask her to refute that. You say suffering comes from material attachment. You're sitting there and you're not fully satisfied. Why? Because you want something. You want to be heard. You want to get up. You want something to drink. All that is causing, obviously, it's mild in the form of which I'm talking about, some discomfort. The more you're attached, the more discomfort you're going to have, the more suffering you're going to have. So God gives the solution to all suffering. Doing away with him is not a good idea if you're concerned about suffering. And in this world, another thing is, in this world, this is statistically verifiable, those who do more to end others' sufferings are those who have religious convictions. That's just a fact. Not all religious people do that, obviously, but percentage-wise, that there are more people expressing and actively involved in, opening soup kitchens, helping the poor, whatever it may be, such things, of a religious conviction doing that than those of a non-religious conviction. So, even if you don't believe in God, it might be good to have him around, and let people believe in him, even if he's not there. Let people believe in him if it serves as an impetus for doing good for others. If you do away with God, then you've just done away with good or bad. So if there's no God, that means there's no meaning, there's no purpose to life. Then good or bad is just a human construct. You think it's good, I think it's bad. It doesn't really. If there's no God, it means there's no. If we add that there's no afterlife, there's no immortality. There's no lawmaker. There are no laws. There's just atheism. Is just material. It's just atoms are just bouncing against one another. That's all there is. What you say, as profound as it may sound to you in your head, is no more meaningful than the sound of raindrops on the roof. You've done away with meaning. That's why, the ontology of materialism contradicts its epistemology. So, so you want to talk about good or bad, but you've done away with good and bad just by becoming an atheist. There is no good. There is no bad. These are all just relative human constructs. All that's happening, according to materialism, there is no suffering. It's just an illusion. Atoms are just bumping against one another, and feelings are just an epiphenomenon of physicality, like steam coming off of a pot of water. That's all. That's the theory with atheism, materialism. There is no good or bad. So you could say, well, you've done away with suffering there. Yeah, well, it's not a very good solution. So these are my thoughts on it. I'd love to talk to her. But I wouldn't shy away from talking to her about consciousness. Consciousness not being epiphenomenal, not being reductive, not being able to be, you can't reduce it to physical forces and so forth. I think that's a good argument to start with. That's how the Upanishads start. You are God. If there's anything in this world that resembles God, it's you. You can say, you can ask me if I believe in a soul, and I'll ask you, do you believe in consciousness? And that's how stupid your question is. Because the soul is consciousness. That's what it is. There's no definition in the Bible for the soul. You got to go to the Bhagavad Gita. or maybe to Plato, who's influenced by the East anyway. Yeah, I think it's a good argument. Start there. And there's a universal mind, and so forth. And then it's easy to build on that over time. Does that help?
Yeah, she was like, I don't think she's like real atheist. I think she's really, really scared that God is evil. And I will like say one example, like what you said about sharks. Like her argument is, for instance, if I were God, I would create beings that wouldn't eat one another to survive. So it's like really difficult because she's looking from this point of view, kind of Christian God who created the world, and that's why it is as it is. That's why it's so difficult to kind of argue with her, because she's dismissing everything, like God could have done that differently.
Well, there are different perspectives on God than the Christian perspective. So we don't have a creation. Everything is. Creation is just something it comes in cycles, but it doesn't have any beginning. So there is no, we're not created. God didn't create one person one way, one person another way. We are what we are, but what we are is units of freedom, and freedom means we make choices. That's a fact. So the question is, does God give us freedom? Well, you could say, why didn't God give us freedom not to do anything wrong? Well, then your freedom is limited. So you have to deal with what you have also. You have freedom. Do you abuse it? Yes. Well, there's your answer. You have freedom. Who abuses it? Does God abuse your freedom, or do you abuse your freedom? God gives you freedom. Who abuses it? God or you? Have you ever abused your freedom? Yes. Okay, then you have your answer. Therefore, you're responsible, not God. Why didn't he limit my freedom? Because he wants to give you full freedom. If he limited your freedom, then you'd be complaining. He didn't give me full freedom. How can I love him? I have to love him because I can't have full freedom to choose not to. So try that out on her.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Safe travels.
Okay. Nice to talk with all of you. See you next week. Hare Krishna. Jai Radhe. Jai Hari.
Jai. Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai. Yeah, so thanks everybody. So we're out of questions, so please for the week, if you have questions, let us know. We can add you to the list to ask next week. Yeah, and have a lovely week. Hare Krishna.